This video is powered by USA Gundam. Visit USAGundamstore.com and enter the code JOEY10 to receive 10% off your next purchase. Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel and welcome to another paint review. This time we'll be taking a look at E7 paints. Now, full disclosure, I've never used these paints before. I picked them up from USA Gundam store when I was there last week, and I picked up 4 colors, and I just figured it would be nice to do a review on them. From what I gather, they are formulated a lot like Gaia Notes, so that's kind of how I'm going to treat them. I'm going to thin them 1 to 1.5 like I do all of my other Gaia Notes, and I'll be spraying at 20 psi just like I do all of my other Gaia Notes. And we'll see how they perform. Hopefully they perform well. I will be spraying a couple spoons, but you know me, I don't really like doing a review with spoons that much. So while also I was at USA Gundam store, I picked up the Quanti Command from the Battle Log series in light of the Battle Log contest that USA Gundam store is putting on. And, you know, I figured it would just be a fun little kit to put together and use these paints on to really test these paints out. I do want to go over the little kit real quick to show you guys what it looks like before paint, and then show you the paints that I will be using, and then of course we'll go into the spraying and show the kit afterwards. So with all that said and done, let's get to it. So here we have a nice 360 of the test dummy for these paints. So this is going to be the canvas for the E7 paints. And I just wanted to include this nice 360 of it to show you guys what it looks like straight snap built out of the box before the paint is applied. So moving forward, I'm going to disassemble this kit and get everything primed gray as to start with a good neutral gray tone to start with the colors. Speaking of the colors, let's go over the 4 colors I'll be using in this review. We have the Royal Blue, Mecha White, Dark Gray Cold, and Dark Frame Gray. Now first off, I want to take a look at the bottles themselves. The labels have a little bit of a wild look to them. I kind of like this whole like mechanical eye looking thing, and then on the back, each of these has the same thing. Like this one says basic, and the other one says primary to mark what they actually are, but it has like a graffiti style back to it. Like I said, it's pretty wild, kind of like the design of those. And also about the bottle size, here it is next to a standard Gaia Notes bottle, and you can see it's about the same shape and everything, but this is 5 milliliters more per bottle. So this is 20 milliliter bottles, so you actually get a little bit more paint for your buck, which is always a good thing. I also want to test these out in multiple PSI ranges. So that being said, I want to do a little bit of pre-shading. So I'm thinking about using this dark frame gray as the pre-shade color to both of these, because of course it is dark, but that's going to require me going down to say 10 psi and spraying it there to see how it is controllable for pre-shading and how it lays down at a lower psi. So as you saw, the masking test and the enamel test went very well. The masking test is kind of self-explanatory. I wanted to test and see how the paint was going to adhere to the primer and see if anything was going to peel up with the masking tape. Of course, nothing did, so these are good, nice, durable lacquer paints. But the enamel test I wanted to add, not really for the compatibility of the enamel paint and the lacquer paint, but more along the lines of testing the resistance of the E7 paints to the enamel thinners. And as you saw, it did very well. Speaking of the enamels as well, as you saw, the panel accent had no issues at all running right through these panel lines, as the E7 left a nice super smooth gloss finish whenever it was sprayed. I have this array of parts here to show you guys what these paint finishes look like before everything turns flat, because the next step I want to do is to do a flat coat on all of these to show what these paints look like under a nice flat coat. Full transparency, the flat coat will be Gaia, as I do not have E7 flat coat. But both being lacquer and supposed to be formulated about the same, it should be fine, and it will also show good compatibility between the two different brands. So to easily take a look at all four colors on one part, we'll take a look at the foot here, which as you can see is fully assembled. Speaking of assembly, all the pieces that I have assembled so far, I've had no issues with chipping or anything like that, which is good. That shows that the E7 lacquers are nice and durable, as they should be as lacquer paints. But taking a look here on the bottom of the foot, you can see that the cold gray and the dark gray are here on the bottom, and both of which having that nice super smooth glossy finish. And the contrast to that, you can see that the blue actually ends up having more of a like a satin feel to it, as you can see here. All paints ended up having a nice smooth surface to them, and the whites, of course, as you can see, the white here, it is gloss, but as I highlighted with the white, I ended up using a little less of the paint, so I ended up with more of a semi-gloss finish on this part. But of course, on this one, you can see it is nice and glossy, and of course, that same gray on top, showing off the nice gloss dark gray. And as you can see, with very minimal effort put in, you can actually get really good results with this paint. The top coating went very well. There was no issues with putting that Gaia top coat over top of these paints, which I kind of figured was going to be the case, because in most cases, if you let paint cure, which you should, you can pretty much put whatever you want on top of that. But it did go well. It really finished out those paints' look. And final thoughts on the paints, they actually surprised me. I went into this with no expectations, because I've never used them, other than I've been told that they were formulated a lot like Gaia. And in that respect, the basic line, so the grays and the white that I used, I can pretty much agree with that. They did act a lot like Gaia notes. Here in the States, they're a lot easier to get than Gaia at the moment. So, you get 20 milliliters a bottle, so that's 5 milliliters more, and they act a lot like it. I liked the basic line. Now, the flaw in this for me was the blue. I feel it could have been better. Now, that's not saying it's a bad paint. It just took a lot of layers to get that color built up, as opposed to the basic line, which was, I feel, a lot more pigmented. The consistency of the blue was a little weird too, but that could just be that type of paint. To me, it almost had a clear blue quality to it. Like I said, the finished result was nice. You ended up with a nice, solid blue at the end, and you ended up with a nice smooth surface. So, you have to work a little bit more with it, but it still is pretty decent. As a whole, I'm actually pretty impressed with these little paints. I basically used this kit as a spoon test, so I didn't really put a whole lot of effort into it, and it was really quick. I did this in 2 days, so probably a total of maybe 9 hours total into this little guy, and it still came out pretty good. I tested the paints, I liked the paints, and like I said before, they are, as of right now, a pretty easily obtainable, and they're obtainable at USA Gundam store. So If you like this review and you like the paints, you can try them for yourself. You just head over to USAGundamstore.com and don't forget to use the code Joey10 to get 10% off of those. So that's going to do it for this review, guys. I hope you like the paints, and I'll see you in the next one.